Hi, I'm Zach Barger with Wise Property Group. Thank you for joining us today for Selling Your Austin Home 101. Today we're going to go over the process of how to sell your home, but beyond that, give you a better understanding of how you can net the most money, as well as make the process as stress-free as possible. Here are a few of the items that we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about Austin's housing market and discuss the trends that will impact the sale of your home. After that, we'll discuss the different options that are going to be available for you when it comes to purchasing your next home. Once we've determined how we're going to navigate that, we'll then jump into the different options that are available to you as far as selling your actual home. Once we've made that determination, then we're going to go through the process of how to actually sell your home. That includes marketing, negotiation, the contract to close process, and setting your price. And lastly but not least, we'll talk about the process of hiring me, which at the end of this class, I hope you see is the best option for you, which will put the most money in your pocket, as well as make the process stress-free and as fun as possible. Unless you've been living under a rock, you're probably aware that Austin's housing market is a little crazy right now. Let's look at the statistics to get a better idea of why. The first statistic we're going to look at are the months of inventory. Months of inventory is an indicator of supply and demand. Within a balanced market, we would expect to see 6.5 months of inventory. In that market, both buyers and sellers would have similar leverage points. But currently, we have 0.6 months of inventory, which means that we are definitely in a seller's market, giving the seller a lot of leverage in these scenarios. This is because we don't have nearly enough homes for the amount of demand that we currently have in this market. Because of that, we're seeing price increases happen very quickly. You can see here that we have a median home price of $550,000 within the city limits of Austin. That's a 32% increase year over year. That's the best indicator of appreciation we have. So as a homeowner, it's great because we're experiencing 32% appreciation. But as a buyer, it can be very difficult to navigate this market and to get into a home because there's so much demand for each individual listing. And because of that, we're also selling homes quickly. We can see that our average days on market is 18 days. It's very rare to see that number very much below 60 days, so that's a pretty good indication of how quickly things are moving. A few key takeaways from the statistics are that we currently have low inventory and high demand, which is leading to high prices and homes selling very quickly. In this market, sellers have a lot more leverage than buyers, and this is definitely the best time in the history of Austin's real estate market to be a seller. A big stressor for people that are selling a home in Austin's market is navigating the purchase of their next home. Let's discuss the variables that are involved with that and how to best navigate that to ensure that this process is smooth and easy for you as you go through it. As we know, we're definitely in a seller's market, which is going to create some issues that we're going to have to overcome on the buy side. It's extremely competitive right now as a buyer, which means that we will likely compete with multiple offers. It's possible that we might lose out on some of the offers that we submit. It's also likely that we'll need to cover an appraisal gap, meaning that we'll need additional cash to close. In this market, it's very difficult to purchase a home if we're not looking at least 20 to 30% down, which will allow us to cover an appraisal gap. We're going to have limited options because there's so few homes and so much demand. We're not going to have a ton of different homes to look at. And it's also going to be very difficult to get a contingent offer accepted, meaning an offer that's reliant on us selling our current home in order to purchase the next home. So knowing that it's a competitive market, does that mean that we should just give up on the idea of moving up into that ideal neighborhood or that ideal house? No, definitely not. There's definitely a ton of aspects on why we should move forward now rather than later. A few of the reasons are, one, we want to take advantage of our equity. We've built equity in our current home, and by accessing that equity, it will allow us to move up into a new house without taking any additional funds out of our pocket. Once we get into a newer home at a higher price point, we're also going to build wealth faster because we're getting similar appreciation percentages on a higher dollar amount home. Another reason that you would want to sell your home is to take advantage of the capital gains exemption. With most investments, any profits that you incur from that investment are going to require at least a 15% capital gains tax on those profits. However, with your primary residence, when you sell your home, any profits that you incur up to $250,000 as an individual and $500,000 as a married couple are completely tax exempt. You have to live in the home 2 out of the last 5 years for that to qualify, but it allows you to take advantage of those tax-free profits that you've generated through your home. The biggest reason that we should move forward sooner than later as well is simply that prices aren't going to go down. It's very likely that we're going to see prices continue to increase very quickly in Austin. I personally believe that it's very likely that our median home price in Austin will surpass $750,000 within the next 2 to 3 years. Meaning that if you want to get into that ideal neighborhood or that ideal home that you've been dreaming about, it's only going to get more and more expensive. So getting into that location sooner rather than later is the ideal scenario for you. Now that we've decided we do want to indeed sell our home and purchase a new home, we need to decide what order we need to do that in. A lot of that depends on your current equity situation. So we're going to look at 2 different scenarios and some options within those scenarios. In scenario 1, you don't need the equity from your existing home. In this scenario, we will purchase your next property first, then once we have that wrapped up, we'll sell your home. Within this scenario, you need to have roughly 20 to 30% of the purchase price available in cash to allow us to complete this process. Scenario number 2, which is much more common, is that you do need the equity out of your home in order to purchase your next home. There's a few different ways that we can navigate this. We'll look at option 1 here. We would list your home and sell it before we go and purchase your next home. In this scenario, we would negotiate for a leaseback as part of the contract with the buyers that are purchasing our home. That would allow you to stay in the home so you don't have to move twice, while also having access to the equity that we've gained through the sale of your initial property. That gives us plenty of negotiating power from the buyer side when we go out to purchase your next home and puts us in a strong cash position, making that transition very easy. Option number 2 is using a company called HomeLight. This is a program that I have access to as one of their preferred realtors. Within this program, you will be able to purchase your next home using some of the equity from your existing home with HomeLight. This is an advantageous process because it allows you more time and flexibility to acquire the next property. Once we do acquire that next property, then we'll put your house on the market and sell it for top dollar. However, it will impact your net about 3 to 5% less than what you would if we did it in the traditional method. So it gives us some more time flexibility, but it does have a negative impact on your overall net of the sale of your initial property. Option number 3 is another attractive option for how we navigate this. Within this, we would purchase a new home. Generally speaking, with the builders now, it's going to be about 6 to 8 months before that home is completed. But it allows us to time the sale of your house accordingly. We can put your house on the market roughly 2 months before your home's completion, and then negotiate for a lease back that will allow you to stay in your existing home while accessing that equity after the sale. One of the limitations with this option is simply that there's very few new homes available throughout Austin area. So we're not going to have a ton of options, but if there's a home that fits our criteria and we can make this work, it makes the process really easy to navigate and time well. Now that we have a feeling for how to time the sale of our house and which method that we're going to use, now we need to determine how we're going to sell our home. You have a few different choices at your disposal. The first choice is to list your home as a for sale by owner. The pros of being a for sale by owner are that you don't have to pay a realtor's commission. But the cons are you're going to have to do a lot more work, including marketing, organizing showings, negotiating offers, and studying to ensure that you're taking all the appropriate steps to complete the sale without putting yourself in a bad liability situation. The other component is in pretty much every single scenario, for sale by owners actually net less than they do when they hire a realtor. A lot of that comes down to the negotiation skills and awareness of the market. And the other component is that 90% of buyers are working with realtors, and a large portion of that 10% are buying new builds that work with sales reps. The majority of people that come to for sale by owners that are looking to purchase them are actually investors, and investors are always looking for a deal. So you're dealing with a very small portion of the market, you're limiting your exposure to that market, and you're dealing with individuals that are just trying to get the best deal possible. Another con of being a for sale by owner is that it opens you up for a lot of liability. Obviously, when you hire an agent like myself, you have someone that's representing you and is also knowledgeable about the process and the contracts. there's a lot of ways that you can make a mistake within a real estate transaction. And if you don't have an individual that's representing you and walking you through that process, it's very likely that you're opening yourselves up to future lawsuits because of mistakes that are made in the contract or items that may or may not have been disclosed through that process. Another option at your disposal is to sell your home to an iBuyer. iBuyers are companies that purchase your home directly from you. The pros of using an iBuyer are that you don't really have to worry about prepping the house or navigating showings. They'll buy the house in whatever condition it's in. And generally it's a faster sale. The concept is you are paying a fee for the convenience of not having to put your home on the market. The con, and this is a really big con, is generally it eats into your net at a rate of about 20% of what you would normally get if you went onto the market. This graphic gives you a great example of how using an iBuyer in comparison to putting your house on the open market can cost you a substantial amount of money. You can see that in this particular scenario that you would net $43,000 less on the sale of your house by going with an iBuyer in comparison to listing your home with a realtor like myself. The next potential option for selling your home is to hire a discount broker. A discount broker is an agent that offers a reduced commission to the common 6% that we see for selling a home in Austin's market. In my experience, I found that individuals that discount their commission are also willing to discount the level of service that they provide for their clients. The reality is, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. In most scenarios, they're going to net you less money than you would if you hired a qualified agent. They tend to be poor negotiators and also aren't as professional or organized as agents like myself. And because of that, you're likely to run into a lot more issues and problems as you go through that transaction, on top of not netting as much money as you would if you hired me. So your last and best option is to hire a badass agent. Like this guy. I take a lot of pride in offering high-level services for my clients. I take a lot of pride in making sure that my clients are going to net the most money possible when they hire me, and I'm able to achieve that because I operate at a high level and I am an expert in negotiating, marketing, and Austin's real estate market. I'll ensure that you get the best possible terms when you sell your house and that you enjoy the process. The only downside with hiring me is you're going to have to figure out what to do with all that extra money we net you at closing. Now that you made the right decision by hiring me, let's talk about the next steps in the process. When it comes to marketing the home, there's two important aspects. One is the presentation of our home, and two are the platforms and the materials we use to market the home. First, let's talk about presentation. Property presentation is extremely important. I've seen scenarios in which homes that are very similar sell for a difference of $30,000 to $50,000 just because of their presentation. One of the resources I'll provide for you before we go live on the market is this seller's checklist. This checklist will walk you through a number of items to address before we hit the market to ensure that our house is showing as well as possible. In addition to this seller's checklist, I will also set up an appointment with my staging team for you. They will meet with you at your home and walk through where to position furniture, decorations, and just the overall presentation of the home. This makes a huge difference and will help our home look like a model home and stand out amongst all the other listings on the market, both online and in person. It's very important to understand that buyers tend to make decisions based on emotion. By having the home staged and looking like a model home, they'll have an emotional reaction to that home that is likely to lead to higher offer prices and more offers in general. Once we have the home in tip-top shape and looking like a model home, I will hire a professional photographer to come and take photos of the home. This is extremely important, as most of our buyers' first interaction with the home will be online. We want to make sure that our photos show off all the amazing features of your home and make it look as attractive as possible to ensure we're going to get as much exposure and as many showings as possible. The more showings we get, the more offers we're going to get, and at the end of the day, the higher the sales price is going to be to put more money in your pocket. Now that we have our photos complete, it's time for me to get to work on creating our marketing pieces. We're going to be marketing our home on many different platforms. The first is going to be print. We'll have property flyers as well as direct mailers. I'll be sending postcards to your neighbors as well as to my network to try to generate more interest in the home. Second will be digital. We'll have a property website created specifically for your address. Then online, we'll be syndicating your listing across the whole MLS. So this ensures that all agents are seeing your property and any of the buyers that they're working with, And this also ensures that your listing is going to be located on any of the websites online where you can search for homes. That includes Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. Anywhere that you can look for homes, we'll ensure that your listing is located there and at the top of those lists. Another marketing technique we will employ is social media advertising. We'll use our individual property website and create advertisements that are targeted to buyers in your area that are likely to be interested in your home to ensure, even when they're on Facebook or Instagram, that your house is in front of them. And last but not least, I'll be hyping up your listing via word of mouth. This includes letting every single licensed realtor in Austin know about your property. This also includes sharing your listing with our team at Wise Property Group and all of their buyers. Additional word of mouth marketing that we'll be doing are open houses, as well as signage in the neighborhood to ensure that anybody driving by is going to be able to see your home is for sale. And open houses will take away a barrier of entry for individuals that aren't working with an agent or their agent wasn't able to show them the property over the weekend. To achieve that maximum exposure, we'll employ a method I call the shotgun effect. In this method, we're going to list your home early on Thursday morning to ensure that every agent and buyer is going to see the home and have plenty of time to schedule showings for the weekend. We'll also be employing all of the marketing materials on that Thursday morning and hyping up our open houses that will be scheduled on Saturday and Sunday. This is going to get us a ton of showings that first weekend, which is going to lead to multiple offers, and those multiple offers are going to be competing against each other, which will then drive up the sales price, putting more money in your pocket. Now that we've generated a ton of interest in your home and have the offers rolling in, let's talk about negotiation. There's two key elements that we will be negotiating throughout this process. The first is the offer process. This is the negotiation that happens before we have an executed contract with the buyer. And the second is the negotiation that happens during the option period. There are many strategies that I'll be employing during the offer process to ensure that we're maximizing the highest dollar amount for you. When we get into a multiple offer situation, we'll set a deadline and ask for highest and best offers. Once we receive those highest and best, we can pick the top offer and negotiate terms on that if there's anything that we need to adjust. If we have similar offers from say 3 or 4 buyers, we can also go back to those 3 or 4 buyers and ask for highest and best again, as their terms were all very similar. These are strategies that we're going to employ to ensure that we're getting the best terms possible as well as the highest sales price possible, and once again, putting the most money in your pocket. Once we've agreed to terms with the buyers, we have what's called an executed contract. That's where all parties have signed off on the contract and have agreed to terms completely. This is a very important component of the whole transaction. When we get to this stage, I'll be guiding you through the entire contract to ensure that you understand the terms that we're agreeing to, as well as giving you recommendations to ensure that we are getting the absolute best terms to achieve your goals. The option period is a completely negotiable term within the contract. This term allows the buyer to pay for a certain amount of time. An example would be roughly $1,000 for 5 days in this market. During that 5-day time frame, the buyer would be able to do an inspection and try to negotiate for any repairs or price reductions based on items that they found in that inspection. As the sellers, we don't have to agree to any of the requests. We can say no to any of them. The risk is the buyer has the ability to terminate the contract for any reason or no reason at all during the option period. If they were to terminate the contract during that time frame, they would lose their option fee, that $1,000 that we mentioned earlier, but they would receive their earnest money back. At that point, we would have to go back onto the market if the buyers were to terminate. In the seller's market that we're in a position of strength because we know that we'll be able to get another buyer in there quickly, especially if we've had multiple offers. That's why during this time frame, I'll be negotiating hard to ensure we maintain those strong terms for you and we're not leaving any money on the table. These two offer scenarios are times where I can create a lot of value for you. Every single transaction has many different nuances and different items that we're going to have to address. But my expertise and experience will allow me to help you navigate this and make sure that we get the best terms possible. Again, putting the most money in your pocket. Now that we have our executed contract and we've dominated the negotiations, the next step is the contract to close process. I'm not going to go into all the details of what happens behind the scenes in this aspect because that's part of what you hired me for, but there is a lot of stuff that's happening in the background. Throughout this process, we'll be collecting the fees from the buyers. That includes their option fee and earnest money. We'll be scheduling the inspection with the buyers and then negotiating those repairs like we spoke about earlier. We'll schedule the appraisal if it's not a cash purchase. If we need to have a survey done, we'll have the survey set up. We'll be going back and forth with the lender and ensure that they are not running into any issues on the financing side and that it will be getting to the closing table and making sure that all the terms of the contract are being met. There's 23 different paragraphs in the contract and many of them have time constraints on elements that we have to complete. Again, I'll be there to walk you through each of those elements. If the buyers want to schedule a final walkthrough, we'll get that scheduled. Then we'll show up to closing, we'll get that coordinated, we'll sign your name a few hundred times, and then you'll get to cash that check. And we all know at this point that it's going to be the most money possible in your pocket. The last element I want to discuss in our class today is setting the price. Setting the price is one of the most important aspects of marketing your home. It's very important to understand what our list price is. It is not our sales price. It is merely a marketing technique. We are positioning ourselves in the market based on our list price. It's very important that we look at all the variables in the market and position ourselves based on price where we're going to get the most exposure. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is overpricing the home. For instance, let's say that you live in a neighborhood where the comps, the recent sales, say that your home should be worth roughly $500,000. Obviously, we want to get more than that $500,000. Maybe we want to get $550,000 based on market conditions. We could list your home at $550,000, but what that's going to do is it's going to eliminate people that would have looked at the home if it was listed for $500,000 and possibly paid up to $550,000 because of where we positioned it. We want to make sure that we're not limiting the exposure to that home by where we price it. So in this scenario, I would recommend listing your home at $499,000, which is going to get us more exposure, lead to more offers, and then drive that price up to our goal price of $550,000 or even higher, depending on how the market sees our home. Again, we want maximum exposure, getting more offers, and putting more money in your pocket. Thank you so much for joining me for our class today. I hope that I've been able to show you the value that I can provide for you and your family when it comes to selling your home. If you're interested in working with me, please give me a call or send me an email or text, and I'd be happy to set an appointment to come and visit you at your home and help create a game plan to put the most money in your pocket.